they got problems, and that's showing up all over the place with how they're structuring next year, 2024, how they're structuring this year, the PIP money, the Tomorrow Sports element of this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're going to get into. The PGA Tour is going all in on LIV. You got to be kidding. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but that's what they're doing. They're full blast. We are just going to go all in on that.
It's the future of golf, so they copied it completely. They don't have an original idea. Jay Monahan's press conference was the biggest dud, though, in my opinion, ever. For sure,
what's the big announcement? How are we saying they're copying LIV, essentially?
Yeah.
They're going all in on LIV. The big announcement was...
They're going to have 8 limited field events, maybe 4 more of their
with no
designated
cuts. Limited
event.
field and...
Limited field, no cuts.
No
We'll talk about no cuts later.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Well, it's a dead-on copy.
It was evil, though, when those other guys did it.
Well, of course it was evil.
Evil. It was a bastardization of the game.
Because he
this
just
is
said...
the Players' Championship?
At the Players' Championship. It's supposed to be their biggest event. It's their flagship event, as we've discussed. They don't own the majors, so this is it. This is when they're going to make all their big announcements. And their big announcement was everything we already knew. In fact, none of the players showed up to the players' meeting because it was already settled.
Yeah, they bleaked it out.
Yeah,
because it's not all that popular.
No, it's not. Well, it's
very popular with 2 guys.
It's very popular.
20 guys.
If you're in the top 30, it's very popular.
Very popular.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
The good news is you guys are going to get wealthy. The bad news is that nobody else is going to get wealthy.
Right. But so I think the reason they couldn't have any actual big announcements, and I'm reading between the lines here, because they haven't secured any new sponsors. They lost the Honda.
We'll get into that.
They haven't secured. I think we should just get into that right now because I think that's the biggest story.
Well,
why didn't they get any new sponsors?
Can I take it in one different direction, just quickly off the top here, which is they're in trouble.
Absolutely,
they're in trouble. They don't have
their stack is dwindling.
And I've loved that since the day you said it. It was your phraseology. Hey, if the PGA Tour thinks it has as big a stack as LIV, they're deluding themselves, or they're stupid, or both. And that has just been so true. And the PGA Tour is blowing money, and they need to. I mean, I'm not faulting them for spending money at all. But hey, the reality, as a business guy, look, the reality is you're going to need more capital. I mean, your model is dying. This ad revenue stuff is dying. That contract that you got with NBC a couple of years ago for $700 million, NBC and CBS, that you'll never see that again. That was the high watermark for your sport, with TV at least. And what are you going to do? And LIV has venture capital essentially behind it, like $3 billion of it, and you don't. So they got problems, and that's showing up all over the place with how they're structuring next year, 2024, how they're structuring this year, the PIP money, the Tomorrow Sports element of this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're going to get into. So that's where I wanted to put that out there, but we'll get into the details as we go along here. But what do you want to focus on next?
Well, you're talking about the sponsorship.
Yes, right,
okay.
exactly.
So the point is
Honda being an example.
Honda being an example of leaving. So what they didn't announce, what made...
We'll put a dot on it. Honda is doing what?
Honda's leaving after
Some
42
people
years.
Probably noticed that.
42 years. They're leaving their sponsorship. They will no longer be a PGA Tour sponsorship.
Of the event in West Palm Beach.
Of the event in West Palm Beach, but they won't be a PGA Tour sponsor at all.
Right.
Which, obviously, Honda's a huge company. They love golf in Japan.
The second largest selling vehicle in the United States, at least, and is a Honda product.
Right. So the point is, what they couldn't do, what made the presser such a dud for me, is they couldn't announce the actual schedule. Okay. They didn't specify how these and where these designated events are going to be. So if I'm a sponsor, I'm like, so number one, you're not forcing the players. The players don't have a contract like LIV to play. So Rory and Rahm have already basically said they're going to skip a few of the designated events because they really don't need the money. So if I'm a sponsor, are you kidding?
Yeah,
you're going to let me know in September when my designated event is going to be, you're not going to, and you're not going to guarantee that Rahm, Rory, Scheffler, Morikawa, the top guys are going to be there?
No, we're going to guarantee you 17 out of 20 maybe.
Right. So my point was, I was expecting in Jay's major press conference, we are ecstatic that we have just signed, give me a name, Progressive Insurance, Bank of America is our major sponsor.
IBM.
IBM
kind of has left the scene.
Right. As a major sponsor, because last year we found $250 million in the seat cushions. This year we got to find $350 million in the seat cushions.
Yeah,
Okay.
they got problems.
But and my biggest and the biggest problem they have, what did they really lose with LIV when all the guys left?
Lay it on me.
They lost all the personalities.
That's true.
Bubba, Phil, huge personalities. Even the quiet DJ was always the gunslinger. Cam Smith.
DeChambeau comes to mind.
And, well, of course, DeChambeau, Koepka.
A disruptor. Whether you like Bryson or not, hey, disruptor, big time.
But that DeChambeau, Koepka rivalry was the biggest talk
Absolutely.
of the whole year.
It was great.
And you lost Patrick Reed.
And I think those two guys quickly realized, hey, we got something. We don't
Yeah.
like each other, but we like what's happening. Maybe we
like
do
it.
like each other.
We're going to get some pimp money for Wiz.
Yeah, maybe it's not so bad. Not so bad, that DeChambeau. I think Koepka came around, and Bryson, I think, is a nice guy.
Yeah.
So they worked it out.
And Patrick Reed, love him or hate him, polarizing figure. Ratings. They lost all the personalities.
All the interesting parts.
right.
Most of them. Most. Yeah, now they're left with Billy NASCAR Horschel, who's just not interesting.
Well, when Jack Nicklaus has to tell Patrick Cantlay, you got to smile occasionally.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
just
he's-
without Tiger running the boards, it's sort of
Yeah.
boring.
Right.
Right? I mean, Scheffler's not that interesting. And I like Scheffler. I've always been a Scheffler guy. I liked him at the Masters before he won a dang thing because I know he can hit the ball well. I know he's a fabulous putter. But yeah, you just go down their list and it's
There's not a lot, and I'm sure
There's not a
we're
lot
missing.
there.
You
Not
know,
very interesting.
obviously Poulter and Garcia and all those
Yeah.
guys were the. It was
Poulter, very
it's the
interesting.
personality, as we mentioned, the personality and the family tour versus what they have on the PGA.
Yeah, they got Spieth, which is why we've labeled Spieth the most important man in golf. Because if he left or goes down in a plane crash, God forbid, they got a real problem. Then they got real problems because Spieth is very, very well liked. I mean, he draws huge ratings when he's in contention because of how well liked he is, and he fits their model of All-American. And, apologies to the rest of the world, but that's how the major money is looking at it.
And Spieth is intelligent and eloquent, and that's why Morikawa I see in millions of commercials because same thing, intelligent, eloquent,
Nice guy.
nice guy.
Seemingly.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they could use with more of him.
They need more of that, but so
Anyway,
they're struggling.
Yeah, the point being
So-
they're having problems.
To put a dot on that, I was expecting a big sponsorship announcement, and they didn't get it, and I think they're in trouble. That's what I read between the lines. The rest of the press are softball questions. Cam Smith isn't there. Cam Smith chose not to be here. No, Cam Smith went to a rival league under contract, but as an independent contractor, you could still let him play in your events, and you're not letting him. It's not, we're blaming the victim there.
Threw him out of the hotel, but we're sorry he's not here. What?
Yeah.
You threw him out. He could be there. He could be in room 401.
They mentioned after he did his rah-rah at the beginning, Monahan then mentioned, we have a great alliance with the DP Tour. You're giving the DP Tour 10 top 10. You're giving the DP Tour 10 cards to join the minor part of the PGA Tour. So you've already designated the DP Tour as a minor feeder event. Did they not know that's what was going to happen?
Of course they did.
All right. So they took $100 million for that? I would have taken more. I think they needed more money for that.
It probably wasn't all at once. It's
Yeah.
100. We pledged $100 million.
Yeah.
We'll see how that gets doled out and what tranches that results in. But it's not. Here's $100 million. But the big theme here is 8 designated events. Okay, fine. They had that this year. So big money, but limited fields now and no cuts. So what has LIV proven, presumably proven, because now the only other rival league, the PGA Tour, is doing the same exact thing, that the professional golf is, to do it right, you need the top players to be at the tournaments. And you've always said, too many tournaments. So it's a watered down product. True. LIV has gone with 12 or 14 events. And the PGA Tour now is essentially going with 12, 14 events plus the majors, so about 18 total events on both sides, so to speak. And that's the model. So the PGA Tour now, de facto has thrown overboard everybody outside of the top 50 ish, and said, we don't care about you. Because, why we don't care about you? Not because we never cared about you, but we really, really don't care about you now because the product is 50 players. It's a lot more like tennis than we thought, or maybe it's always been, or there's only an Arnie every now and again, and there's only a Tiger every now and again, and a Jack. I mean, there just aren't that many guys that really draw in a global audience. So see you later, and everything else outside of the top 50, the PIP guys and the top 50 guys, is a feeder tour, right? Everything else is minor league when it comes to the PGA Tour's model.
And to be honest with you, they're now starting to talk about the product, and that is the good. That's the best thing that happened to this, because as I hated when I used to watch more golf, is Phil and Tiger were never in the same event except for the majors, and they always put Tiger with the early late start and Phil with the late early start, so they were never on the course at the same time for 20 years. That's the good thing. But the other thing, they've gone into full propaganda mode because they've gone to the no-cut limited fields, and somehow their no-cut limited field gets world golf ranking points and elevated FedEx Cup points. So how are you going to get into those if you're not in them now, and they're getting elevated points with no cut? How are you going to get into those events? It's going to be a challenge, to say the least.
There's like two realities here. There's the business reality, which the PGA Tour is executing against because they have to, and then there's the propaganda reality. So, and the two they're not the same when it comes to the PGA Tour. They do one thing and say something almost completely different. The LIV Tour or league is sort of saying one thing and doing the same thing. They're not mixing it up. The PGA Tour is trying to say that they're the same as they always were. Not true. Growing the game, not true. Globally interested, 100% not true.
Let me chime in real quick here. The fact that one of their big propaganda is talking about they've always had limited field and no cut events. One of the things that Monahan said that really didn't pass the smell test for me was, he said Arnold Palmer won 17 limited field events, Jack Nicklaus won 22 limited field events, and Tiger won 26. Now, it's a consensus, I thought, that Tiger's won 18 limited field events, but Nicklaus is the interesting thing to me. Nicklaus won 73 times. So you take out the 18 majors, right? You take out the 3 Players' Championships, I believe he won. That leaves, 52? Mm-hmm. So you're telling me 22 of his 52 victories were limited field? Huh? And I went down Nicklaus's victories, and I saw a couple of those World Series of Golf victories, a couple match plays, but I didn't see anywhere near 22. I saw a lot of the Andy Williams.
They didn't exist.
They didn't exist. How do you get 22 out of that? Out of the remaining 52, how do you get 22? That means he only won 30 regular. You're telling me Jack Nicklaus only won 30 regular field events? So that's what I mean. The propaganda machine that they are running right now,
it's annoying. It's annoying. I mean, it's offensive. It offends me. The arrogance offends me.
When we were growing up, my mommy told me I was lying when I said something like that.
It's offensive. As a thinking person, and this is the Thinking Man show, we are offended by their arrogance for thinking we're stupid and that we'll just drink this Kool-Aid. That's, and then on down the line. It's
But the justification of the limited field now getting all their point is that irritates
let's
me.
pivot to that. Let's pivot to that. OWGR, the official World Golf Rankings, and the FedEx Cup points standings. Obviously completely different. It sure seems to us that the PGA Tour, even though they've been doing this for a while, for the right reasons really, they are becoming even more focused, promoting more their FedEx Cup points.
Well, FedEx is ponying
that
up.
are meaningful to everything on the PGA. Now, the OWGR really has only to do with the majors. Who cares about the OWGR except that the majors have decided to use them to give you an automatic ticket into their event if you're in the top 50 in the OWGR rankings. Okay, well, that could change. I mean, That doesn't have to be that way. The U.S. Open, the Open Championship, they could just decide. Obviously, the Masters is already an invitational. And the PGA of America, they could totally change. I think what I'm seeing with the PGA Tour is with all these little breadcrumbs they're laying around, that the FedEx Cup point standings are a lot more important to them. And they would love for the majors to use the FedEx Cup point standing, but the majors they can't. That would be collusion. That would be anti-trade, anti-free trade. It would be an easier road to hoe in court for LIV, because that would be collusion, because they're not the same entity. But it's interesting that I think the OWGR is having a bad year.
Yeah, well,
they're having a bad year. Maybe we go short on the OWGR at this point.
The OWGR needs to go back to
they just go away?
It was May. Somebody needs to come up with a real system that's ranking the top players in the world, because the top players in the world, and I'm going to highlight a future show, is the future Ryder Cup between LIV and the PGA Tour.
That'll be awesome. I mean, the ingredients are all here for a much better professional golf situation than we had 10 years ago with a monopoly.
Yeah.
We had Tiger, and that changed everything. If Tiger didn't exist, where would we be right now? Phil would have a few more majors probably, and he would have carried things pretty well. But there's no Tigers coming along every 40, 50 years. But we're in a great place now, I think. I mean, maybe behind closed doors, the PGA Tour knows that too. Maybe Augusta is willing to have that conversation behind closed doors. What's wrong with two rival leagues going at it
and
having their own system? Why wouldn't LIV? Where's your point system?
Yeah,
we're going to get to that today. Where's your version of the FedEx Cup points? You need that. You need to give the majors something to look at. And hey, our top 10 guys are right here. Yeah. They should be in your major.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I was going to say. Somebody, whether it's, and LIV should have from day one had their own official world golf ranking system.
Well, their own LIV rankings anyway.
Yeah,
where is DJ right now in the LIV rankings? There isn't one.
Right. Where's Cam Smith?
I want to know that.
DJ?
I want to know who's the number one player on LIV right now. I would say it's Cam Smith. But
DJ won everything last year, so he's got to be number one.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe just certainly for number of events. Yeah, okay, so maybe he is number one because of, fine. That's a good point. And Cam's too. But who's really the better player? Who would you bet on if Cam and DJ are having a 36-hole match?
Depends on the event.
Depends on the course.
Depends on the course. I mean,
if there's putting involved, I might go with Cam.
Yeah.
And there might be putting involved. If that causes you even a little bit of pause, that says a lot about DJ. Good for you, DJ. Because Cam is a very good player right now. A very good player.
Yeah.
And so are the other. Anyway, come up with a rankings, please, and which falls into another point maybe you don't want to make right now, but you will get to it, which is data. Where's the data for the LIV guys? What's their GIR? What's their putts per round? What's going on here? Why don't we know that?
They have to just it's just simple. They need the strokes gain, because they're actually going more to there's a strokes gain world rankings point. I mean, they need to get that going. That's surprising to me, because that's a couple of computers in a room and a few more TrackMen, and that's really it.
Well, I did get a call yesterday.
Yeah, good.
That LIV called, and they said they want us to be the project managers for the gaming app, the LIV gaming app, LIV Gaming. So they've got LIV Golf Plus, which is a terrific app. So whoever did LIV Golf Plus is solid. So our job is going to be to take that vendor and build LIV Sportsbook app. Yes, and that's where all the data is going to go, and then we'll roll that into the LIV Golf Plus streaming, of course, so that you have all the data there, so that we can all sit in a sports bar and have a good old time betting on LIV every time they tee it up, and then betting on LIV players at the majors if that's what we want to do, and the other guys in the PGA Tour as well, and the other tours. But God, wouldn't that be awesome? And then they come together twice a year or once a year for a World Series, for who's the big dog in town, LIV versus PGA Tour. I mean, that would sort of eclipse
Yeah.
the Ryder Cup very quickly.
By the way, so many fans love match play. They're getting rid of the Dell match play. They're losing Dell, I think, as a
The
sponsor.
only event
also.
that does well in the LPGA is the match play Solheim Cup.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
watched. People
And
watch
it's
that.
Yeah. Everybody loves match play.
That has a male audience.
Right. They're getting rid of their only match play event. And I think they're losing Dell as a sponsor too. They're really in trouble. That's another blow to their stack. That's
maybe they told Dell you're not a designated event already.
I'm sure they.
Yeah,
did.
They got a lot to work on.
They
got a lot of vendors they have to talk to and get squared away with. And
Yeah.
assuming the vendors still want to be with these designated events, I assume they do.
Well, they want to be with the designated events, but who wants to sponsor a minor event where you have nobody in the top 50 in the world there? That's their problem. They need to, you know what they should have, the second thing they should have announced besides a new huge sponsor is we are now merging the Corn Ferry Tour and our minor events, and we're getting rid of the fall season. On the one hand, Monahan says we got to end our season before college football and the NFL, and on the other hand, well, we're going to announce the fall schedule in a few weeks. Why are you having a fall schedule? Talk about something nobody watches. That's what like I said, sponsoring the Wine Country Open or the Fortnite Open or whatever the hell they are.
We need our whiteboard. I
know.
really need a whiteboard.
Terrible.
There's just so many interesting aspects to this premise that they're going to have these 8 limited field no-cut events and what that says about everything that's going on there. And let me make the point before I forget that if the PGA Tour is struggling, maybe they're kind of struggling. Who knows how really good or bad it is under the covers, but we do know that Honda left. It makes sense that other sponsors would be not so excited about having a minor league event. How does that move the needle for them? And there's only 8 or 12 of these designated events. That's not very many. So if from all of that we can sort of hypothesize that, hey, pro golf and commercial sponsors ain't so easy right now.
Yeah.
What's that say about LIV's prospects with the CW, with tournament sponsors, with all that stuff? If there's no money in it, not really. If it's not a positive trajectory for the PGA Tour that has a running head start at it, and they're the number 1 tour in America where there's a lot of money, what's it say about LIV's opportunities? So I think we should go gambling on LIV.
Yeah.
I need to say that, 12 times per episode?
Yeah, exactly. You're out. I think that was a
There's no money in advertising.
Yeah.
There's no
well,
money.
And the other
Honda
point
leaving
is,
says that.
Let's be honest. The biggest 4 events are the majors, and people are going to advertise there and spend their advertising dollars there. That's a problem.
The tours have nothing to do with it.
Right. So they don't get any of that money.
No.
And another bit of irony, I was watching the television, which I seldom do, but I saw commercials today with LIV golfers on the Golf Channel. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, hey,
what was it for? Wasn't
Bryson was in LA Golf, and I think Oosthuizen does one of those cloud-based something or others. I can't remember. That's how little the advertising actually means.
But Taylor has dropped DJ.
Oh, that's right. So the war has really started, the propaganda war. So Taylor Adidas dropped DJ and Sergio. Okay, I could see that. And then the war with...
Were they asked to do that? Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yes, they were.
DJ and Sergio came out and said, we are no longer renewing our contract, blah, blah, blah.
Well, do you think it was their
correct.
decision, or do you think that they would have kept with Adidas or Taylor or both if they could have? Did LIV say drop him? I don't think so.
LIV didn't say drop him. No. It was.
And why would DJ drop him?
No.
He's had a nice experience with those guys.
Sure.
So
I think
it wasn't a business decision by Adidas. I mean,
no, it was a business decision by Adidas. They're picking up Morikawa.
The PGA Tour went to them and said, "Hey."
All right, exactly, and that's my point with.
And Adidas went, "Wow, we sell 97% of all our stuff to American buyers." Okay, we'll do that. I mean, it was a bottom.
It was certainly a financial decision. The same with Mark Steinberg dropping Thomas Peters. Thomas Peters joins LIV. All of a sudden, nobody wants to talk to him anymore.
I wonder how many people in our audience, probably more than normal, would know that story already. That the Tigers agent also was managing Peters, was a top European player when he got going, and has sort of not materialized. He's had reasonable success.
He's had a good career. He still was like 30th in the
Yeah,
world.
solid. He's
he's
not a
just 30th in
superstar.
the world, and he was angry that he didn't get invited to the Genesis. And
Well, he's got Tiger's agent,
and he's at Tiger's agent.
and then Tiger's agent doesn't even call him.
Doesn't call him.
Sends him a note with the admin assistant that says, "You're fired.
The administrative
We're
assistant.
firing you as a client."
His administrative assistant sent him a text.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're no longer a
Oh,
client.
by the
of
way,
mine.
you're going to need representation.
I mean,
Oh, by the
so
way.
it's
What did I do? Did was I caught on some sex tape in a hotel? No. You joined LIV.
You join LIV, and that's it. And we are the only way the PGA Tour survives, the way they want to survive, is this complete war. And I think
Well, but
eventually,
you got to put a dot on that. Tiger calls the agent and says,
Oh,
"Hey, I just saw that Peters joined LIV. You're dropping him, right?"
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right, Mr. Woods. Absolutely. We already did it, in fact. We anticipated your phone call, and
I mean, like I said, same concept. 2 weeks ago, Rory and DJ and all of them were still on the same Adidas commercials. Now all of
Yeah.
a sudden they have all new commercials. No DJ, he's gone.
it all plays together. Tiger Woods is in the middle of every one of those conversations about what they're going to do with designated events. They'd love to have Tiger at the designated events next year.
By the
He
way,
still gets all the PIP money.
yeah,
It's not like he's a distant figure on the PGA Tour.
he still gets the most clicks. Yeah,
And he never plays.
he never plays.
Who said that? Somebody said that.
I think James Hahn was
Pointed
not.
it- oh,
James
yeah.
Hahn is the one guy who's.
Can you talk about that for a minute? I thought that was a really funny. That's sort of related to what we're talking about. It is related. Of course.
He was on their advisory board.
We'll say
and
his name
he's
again
not.
so
James
everybody-
Hahn was on the advisory board. He's
Has
replaced.
he won? Has he ever won a tour event?
He's won one or two.
James Hahn, PGA Tour card
Advisory
holder,
board. Yeah,
and has presumably won at least one tournament. Maybe I don't know that, but
I know he's won at
he's
least.
on
Anyway,
the policy advisory
until a few
committee.
years ago, and then the
No,
point
till
is
last year, till
Was it last year?
2021.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, so I think
so he's on there with Rory.
Yeah, and Molinari took it. Not Molinari.
Molinari.
Molinari took his place, and he's upset on multiple levels. First, it's a joke.
Can I just say I'm upset on multiple
Levels. First of all, he was the little guy there. He was the guy not in the top 50.
No, nobody
who
ever
was
heard of him.
supposed to stand up for the rest of the players.
Oh, he said that about Malnati.
And Molinari's not standing up for the rest of the players. That's problem number
well, lay
one.
it out. Han in public to a reporter rips Peter Malnati about not standing up for the rank and file with the advisory
With
committee.
the advisory board.
So here we have a PGA Tour player, a member, complaining vehemently about this new model.
Now,
That's the story.
You've got to go to the 10th page of the New York Post.
Whatever,
to
it's in
find
there.
it.
It's out there, though.
It is out there, but you can't find it. They're burying him. Of
The
course,
golf
like they
media
are.
is in on the
The golf
propaganda,
media is in on
obviously.
the whole thing, right? So just the point is, and they were and nobody when they reading between the lines, same concept of nobody went to the players' meeting at Sawgrass because everything was a done deal, and the players would come out and they would not name who said this.
Well, but Han had it. What were his three interesting tidbits? He laid some. Go find the story. I mean, it's interesting.
And the other thing, well, you had mentioned, so Tiger without playing wins all the pimp money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's absurd, right?
It is, and it's an obvious point to make.
So,
like, why are we throwing millions of dollars at
the billionaire,
right?
right?
Why are we doing that?
And the whole point is he's like, and so the concept of James Hahn is, of course, you're making the rich richer and the poor poorer. So you have to come out with the propaganda machine like Brandel DeChambly talking about how, and this new system is going to bring more money to the minor tour events. Brandel, how's that going to happen?
Brandel is.
Because on Earth, where I live,
He's redefined selling your soul to the devil,
yeah, and
which he has done.
yeah, I mean,
All financial. I'm convinced now.
Well,
I mean, he feels that way personally, but it's a financial decision for him. He
as
just
you know,
wants to keep his job.
You and I talked to a couple cameramen at a couple events. They don't think that Golf Channel's going to be around. He's single-handedly trying to save the Golf Channel.
Which is saving his job.
Right. Exactly.
He's got the new
So
wife.
it's all
He needs
financial.
he needs the money. Believe it or not, I need the money. After all these years.
Yes, he
Believe
needs
it
the
or not.
money. And there was some other ridiculous comments. I think we're about wrapping it up. We'll do a little wrap up. Some ridiculous comments. One of the guys on the Golf
Well,
Channel.
let's leave Han where he is because
Yeah.
I can't get you to give me the points, but they're good. So
Yeah.
go read those because here's a guy who's on the tour. He has the credentials of having just left the advisory committee that represents the players to the tour, and he has all these nasty things to say that are abundantly obvious that we're all thinking and knowing. This guy had he said the choice words, right? He said Malnati didn't have the sack or whatever.
The sack. He said
he didn't have the
Malnati
sack to stand up for. I mean, Hahn was pissed at the whole situation, and therefore, why did I even bring this up? Why is B Team even talking about this? Because Hahn's not alone.
No,
he's not alone.
He represents the vast majority of those players.
There's 100 guys that would go out and say that. Yeah. And so what does that say? There's a huge schism now between the haves and the peasants. Right. And the peasants are, out there with their pitchforks looking in, and, the Rory McIlroys of the world are all too comfortable with their fine new position. And it seems like, who's the one guy that's over there in the castle with the dukes and the lords having, the fancy food and wine and all that, but he doesn't seem all that comfortable with it? Who's that?
It's Rahm.
John Rahm.
Yeah.
I don't think John's very comfortable. He understands it, but he's not comfortable.
He's not as comfortable as the rest of the players.
Is Spieth comfortable? Maybe not.
Like I said, Spieth, as we've talked about, is very silent on all these things.
Maybe we need to do. We have not thought about that. Thank you, audience, for allowing us to ramble on here to arrive at a really interesting point, which is maybe we should talk in a recurring way about just who inside the top 30 really on the PGA Tour aren't really drinking the Kool-Aid the way that the tour wants them to, meaning they're a little uncomfortable with this, really just torpedoing all the guys in the Korn Ferry, all the other PGA Tour players who now are playing in minor league events, everybody in Europe, everybody around the world. You guys have the tour with this new model have just destroyed all of that. And I'm not terribly comfortable. You know why? Because I like the other guys. Yeah. I'm a real human. I would like to be successful and financially successful, but do I want to do that by destroying everybody else? I'm not really comfortable doing that.
Well, it's the
and
same
that's Rahm
thing.
Is there, I think.
Rahm's there.
Maybe Spieth.
Maybe Spieth, because here's what we have. It's the same thing. The LIV guys, Garcia no longer talks to McIlroy. There was the schism of LIV. Now you're going to have those same PGA Tour players having a schism with the minor PGA Tour players. They're not going to be at the same events. They're not going to be flying on the same private planes and all that kind of stuff. No. And as I've discussed before, it solidifies what I talked about in the baseball model a year ago. Let's be honest. The LIV's going to represent the rest of the world. PGA is going to represent the U.S. The Korn Ferry and the minor events are going to be a feeder for the PGA Tour. And the DP needs to wake up and not let Asia become the second minor tour to LIV and start feeding LIV those players. And as you said, if I'm a young guy and I can sign a contract like every other sport out of college and go play, and now that we see LIV players are in the majors, it's a no-brainer. The PGA is still playing catch-up. Let's be perfectly honest. Anybody who doesn't realize
they don't have a stack.
They don't have a stack, and they're still playing catch-up. And their propaganda is ridiculous. Another lunacy phrase that one of the guys on the Golf Channel said, if Rory would have went to LIV, he would have got $1 billion. Like, Phil got like 150, DJ got like 120. Rory was behind them. Rory's not exactly Mr. Personality.
He was behind Spieth.
Oh, he's way behind Spieth. Yeah, absolutely. And the ridiculous propaganda that they come up with is just, it's silly.
It is.
So
it is.
Now you got me fired up.
I do. Well, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. Yeah. No. I think we're on it. It's always what's always interesting about this story versus talking about golf swing and scoring and winning your Nassau, all things that we want to talk about more. It's just so darn interesting to watch a group of people that you used to respect and you used to think, that the game had honor and integrity at the pro business level. Now, the game still has great honor and integrity because of the game that it is. It's very hard to cheat. It's really hard to rig, if not impossible. You can't just say, hey, we want Tiger to win this one. Oh, yeah? Make that happen. You can't, which is different than every other sport, which is amazing about golf. And there's the hundreds of years of tradition. And it's just a great game. That doesn't mean, though, the great honor and integrity of the game that we all play, that the business of the PGA Tour is honorable and full of integrity. No.
Well.
It does not mean that at all. The honor and integrity of the history of professional golf does not live on the PGA Tour. It lives maybe at the Open Championship, maybe at the Masters, probably at the Masters
Definitely
first.
at the Masters.
And then at the U.S. Open. Fine. And we all love that. But these guys on the tour that are wrapping themselves in this majors flag, among others, have abandoned us, is the way I feel about it. They've left us. I didn't leave them.
Yeah.
They've left us because they're full of it. They're full of crap. It's a business. Tell us that. It's fine. We're business people. We understand. We're big people. We don't need to know that. That it's, you don't have to wrap yourself in whatever you're trying to wrap yourself in, while at the same time basically doing the opposite.
Yeah.
And I really don't like that they've just crushed some great places where golf is phenomenal. Australia, UK. I like to say Scotland all the time. I like to say it. So let's just say Australia, England, Scotland, Ireland, South Africa. I mean, these are great places with great traditions of golf, and we'd like to see them included in the pro ranks. And the OWGR in cahoots with the PGA Tour has made that as hard as possible. I mean, forget being from South Africa and trying to make it. You can't be, outside of the top 50 and make it in America. And how do you get into the top 50? Wow.
No, it's
super hard.
It's going to be there's a couple spots. Yeah, a couple points. So Jay in his presser mentioned a few times, and there's going to be avenues for these other players. There's going to be ways for them to get to the top 50, but it's going to be really hard. Okay. Really? He doesn't mention those. When he says his cheerleading stuff, he never gives the details, because it's really hard. When you talk about integrity, the origin of this all started with Phil realizing the PGA is keeping a lot of money from the players, right? Mm-hmm. And the saddest thing is, of course, because it's not a show until we mention something Billy, NASCAR driver, said, right? One of their big propaganda issues is there's players. Is there a pathway for LIV players to come back? Like all these LIV players are unhappy, even though it's the happiest.
Did Horschel say that?
Well, it gets even better. Because as we mentioned, LIV is the happiest place on earth. It replaced Disney as the happiest place on earth.
The personality tour, as coined by Darkstar.
Right.
The personality tour.
So anyway,
I like that.
Billy says, well, if there's any chance of them coming back, they need to come right here and apologize to us. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, you mean they should apologize for making you fabulously wealthy and exposing the... Yes, Billy, we apologize for exposing the hypocrisy on the PGA Tour and making you guys fabulously wealthy.
Did he happen to mention... I probably know the answer. Did he happen to mention apologize for what exactly?
Well, no, of course not. Yeah. They should come here and apologize if they want to come back on our tour. If they're unhappy... There's this... One of their propaganda sticks is they're implying that all these LIV guys want to come back and are unhappy. Now, if I'm a LIV guy, right?
Funny.
And I actually want to do that, there's nothing stopping me from saying that.
No.
And I'm sure that they would be happy to find an avenue, just like getting into the designated events for you.
Try to play your way back onto the PGA Tour. Theoretically, they have a qualifying system, but of course nobody gives a rip about the PGA Tour events. Right. Let's not wrap ourselves in the flag of the major tournaments PGA Tour. They have tried very hard to do that. They've succeeded in part with a large number of American viewers, at least,
right?
Because they've just bought the propaganda. But I can go play in the U.S. Open, right? And Cam will be there. Indeed, all the LIV guys will be there that qualify.
Now, and the last comment here is, I really hope that LIV wins the injunction to get on the DP events.
Save it.
I hope their core. It might save the DP. You're exactly right. It might say. It should. It would save the DP, and
it would.
Yeah. So I hope their legal system is a little more.
Well, if that's
legitimate than ours.
If it's true that the LIV guys being on DP would do only good things for DP. Would it save it? I think it might. I mean, it's the only chance they have really. Otherwise, the tournament's going to turn into a joke, or the tour is going to turn into the DP World Tour will turn into a joke. And who knows how long DP World is going to stick around as the sponsor.
Right.
I mean, that's a Dubai-based group that's right down the street from PIF. They're all one big, sort of business community. Let's call it that.
It's the Switzerland for the Middle East. We've discussed that.
It is. It's particularly the UAE versus Abu Dhabi. But they talk. Those groups, the Saudis, the Emiratis,
Right.
Those people all talk. Trust me. And the money circulates. Abu Dhabi has oil, but the UAE's does not. But the DP World may not stick around, and so therefore, perhaps the arbitrator in the case there might be swayed because it's in everybody's interest that the decision goes in favor of LIV players playing.
And I think they would make a much better. They would make a great feeder tour for LIV, in combination with the Asian tour, and then we have really the future of golf.
That's absolutely true.
I would love to see that.
Absolutely true because the European tour is using the Middle East a lot. Because Europeans,
all their big events.
Well, Europeans like it there. It's sunny and warm and hot and beautiful, and it's not that in Europe ever. So if you're from Norway, UAE looks like paradise.
It is.
So that would be, that'd be great. Yes, I mean they'd probably play tournaments in the UK and the Middle East. I mean, essentially, right? And skip everywhere else in between. Really? Okay. They've decided to mow the grass right by our set.
So yes, the DP Tour would be a much better feeder system. Create
for LIV versus the PGA Tour.
And then you're creating that system of you have two rival leagues coming together at the majors. Love to see a Ryder Cup between the two rival leagues.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another point you haven't made the point, but if the arbitrator allows LIV players to continue to play on the European Tour, then of course they're eligible for the Ryder Cup, right?
Yeah.
So that saves the European team for the Ryder Cup as well. Brings a whole lot of it. I mean, it's a spectacle at that point then.
It would be great.
The whole world would tune in just to see the soap opera. Like, we hate each other, and the players would be wise to play that angle. Like, I don't know that I can stand in the same room with those guys. Of course you should say that. They don't think that for the most part. But it's great for the sport to get eyeballs.
playing Cantley in a Ryder Cup.
It'd be fantastic.
It'd
be great for everybody. Well, Bryson won't be on the team, but at least to have the Europeans there.
Do you know who
Sergio there?
Let me ask him. Do you know who Yannick Paul is?
No.
He's presently qualified for the European Ryder Cup for Italy.
Really?
And I never heard of him until I was doing a little research on, because that would be a little fantasy that I have of that. I've never heard of him.
Well, I need to get out to the range because I certainly want to be considered.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to go practice. It would just be, hey, let's get real. I mean, it would be so much better for everybody. And by everybody, I mean FedEx, the PGA Tour, Rory, Tiger, all of them, Greg, Phil, all the LIV guys. If the Ryder Cup allows the Europeans,
they keep saying this is going to be so much better for the fans. Now it is, like I said, the only positive. It's going to be better for the fans. But why did it take them 25 years to start thinking about the fans again? And by the way, they even did mention that the players at the end is going to have some limited commercial coverage because even they realize our coverage is terrible. NBC or who's ever doing it it's horrendous watching guys stalk their putt for 5 minutes.
I think because the ads are devalued per 30 seconds, so they're not worth much. Yeah. You have to sell more of them. So you have to show a lot more ads when they're not worth much to get it to add up to anything. Remember, NBC is trying to get out of this horrendous contract.
Yeah.
Not out, but out under. They got to try to make some of their money back.
Yeah, they do.
That's how they're going to do that. Well, we're going to show ads ad nauseum, basically. That's what we're going to do. That's our strategy. And if people want to TVR past it, fine. But we can still sell the space. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we're in charge of gambling.
All right.
Yeah, we don't want to be in charge of advertising. No, don't want that job.
We're still waiting for that call from LIV, huh?
They called yesterday. Yeah, project managers for the gaming app. Yeah, it'll be fantastic. We won't miss a beat though. We'll still be out here doing our thing for sure. All right, I am gonna run. B team is out.
All right, Dr. Darkstar's out.